coming up in episode 61.
But there are profit-driven reasons why a company of any size might want to look at doing some of these social responsibility projects, initiatives, and processes. Welcome to another episode of The Little Radio Show. My name is Sandra Fernandez, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Juan, Alanis, and Anjelica Cazares, and we're bringing you small talk about big topics. This week we're joined by new radio talk show producer and host Roselyn Wyatt, who is going to soon be launching a show on corporate social responsibility and sustainability here at hmsnetradio.org. In addition, we have a conversation about the fact that for the very first time in the United States, bees have been added to the endangered species list. We'll be talking about what this means to us and some related topics in today's show. Just a reminder that you can catch us every week on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central Time on hmsnetradio.org. Our show archives and the link to our iTunes and Stitcher channels are available at thelittleradioshow.com. The Little Radio Show is brought to you in partnership with juanofwords.com and hispanichouston.com. And this week we're being joined by a coming soon to a show near you, another host of another show here at Houston Media Source Radio, and we have Roselyn Wyatt with us. Roselyn's day job is she's a marketing professor at the University of St. Thomas. So I think that we all know that marketing and communications are topics that we cover here fairly frequently. But the show, as I understand it, is going to be focusing on corporate social responsibility and sustainability. Thank you for joining us, Roselyn.
Hi, everybody.
And so tell us a little bit more about what your show is going to be about. I know that you're you're still putting this together. You don't have a start date yet. You're still getting all your ducks in a row. But tell us a little bit about what you see the show being about.
Well, my focus and my research and my practice consulting all revolve around sustainable business. And, when you think about business, typically when you hear business in media, you think about Fortune 500's big business, profit driven. But we want to take a look at business from a different point of view, kind of from a circular point of view instead of linear, where the focus isn't only on profits and making money, but the focus is on people, planet, and profits. So we know that because it's a business, it has to make money, but it doesn't have to trash the environment and just denigrate people and hurt people in the process. Business can be a really, really strong force for good in the world. It is also a very just intricate part of the community. It's very, very important to a community. Why? Because businesses provide products, great products, hopefully. Businesses also provide jobs, and businesses also provide investment in the community. I mean, when you think about sports teams, kids sports teams, and other charity, business can be a very, very integral part of building a community. And we just want to take just a little bit of a more holistic, kind of a circular look at business as opposed to the, bottom line. We only care about profits, we only care about our stock price. So that's kind of what the show focuses on.
So a lot of people, when they hear corporate social responsibility, normally what that means is giving. You're giving money. You're talking about more than that, though.
Yeah. In addition to that, so we talked about what businesses provide to communities. They provide products. Well, the whole idea is to provide good products that won't harm people, products that take the environment into consideration. We talked about people, right? Providing a good place for employees to want to come so that they feel like they're doing meaningful work and that they are a valued part of the organization, right? And also, there's the whole profit thing. Like I said, businesses are there to make money, but how are you doing that? And are you doing it in a way that fosters positivity? Or are you doing it in a way that takes takes.
Are there good examples of maybe companies that have been doing the 3 Ps correctly?
Well, yes. In the future on the show, we'll get into some companies that are local right here in Houston that are doing that.
Which will be wonderful.
Oh yeah, we this is a Houston show, so we're going to focus on those companies, but also even from a national standpoint. I don't know if you've ever seen companies like Seventh Generation. You might have seen their products in the stores. Method, they make cleaning products, and they have a cradle to cradle kind of focus, meaning that nothing gets wasted, right? Nothing gets wasted in the manufacturing process is very thoughtful about how those products are going to be disposed of. Even companies, of course, like Ben and Jerry's ice cream, they're very, very in tune with their corporate social responsibility. And they have a lot of activities and things that they focus on to do good in the world. And, like I said, I think a lot of times, you have old school business people who are like, oh yeah, well, it's all about making money. It's all about making money. That's what we're here for. And, like I said, nobody's downplaying that. It's just that why does that have to be the only focus, right? There's people, there's workers, there's other stakeholders that are out there that need to be considered as well.
But there are profit-driven reasons why a company of any size might want to look at doing some of these social responsibility projects, initiatives, and processes. For example, millennial workforce are more prone to working for organizations that have a strong social good component. And that's one of those things. So if you're trying to attract top talent from this new generation, having a strong social good component to your business or to your process is a really good way of doing that. There are certain demographics of the population that are more prone to buying from you and to purchasing your goods and services if you have this differentiation from your competitors. And it would seem like, it shouldn't matter, but it does. So from a marketing standpoint, this is in fact a selling point. I hate to be so cold-blooded about it, but that's the truth.
Oh yes, and companies that really understand that, they're there, right? They get it, and they are tailoring their messages, of course, with authenticity, right? Because we don't want to have companies greenwashing. But they are, coming to understand, and there's been documented evidence, right? There have been a number of studies that talk about the return on investment of these type of initiatives. I mean, and just fundamentally, if you say, well, we're going to kind of employ an energy savings measure, right? We're going to turn off all the lights when people aren't there and, all those things. Well, of course, that saves money. That saves companies money, and it's good for the environment. So none of these things are that you do them in a vacuum, right? If you do them and you employ them well, it also helps you. It helps not only potentially your actual profits, but it also improves your standing in the community. And just as you said, it improves your standing with certain demographics who are looking for that. I mean, people are looking, hey, where did this come from? Where was this sourced from? Where did this food come from? Is it local? Who's the farmer, right? Is it GMO or non-GMO? And
there's a lot of that these days. So how did the idea for this show come about? Is this something that you, talk about on a regular basis, that you teach about as well? Or how did that idea come about?
Well, I had an epiphany in 2008, right? So I thought, wow, something just doesn't feel right, with this traditional approach of, just building shareholder value. That's in business schools, the conventional wisdom is, it's all about maximizing shareholder value. And so, you think, okay, well, you can do that, but what happens to everybody else? I mean, why are everybody else's interests not paramount as well, right? Also, the other thing, if you think about it in terms of shareholders, some of you might have 401ks or, people who have 401ks, and there are companies that are in those portfolios that are doing things that might be harmful to the environment. Well, you're a shareholder, but are you a shareholder that wants to breathe bad air? I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah, I might be I might own stock in this company, but by the same token, I don't want to be polluted as well, right? I mean, so they're competing interests. So, you have to take that into consideration. Like I said, nobody's expecting companies to give things away or not make money, but how do we balance that with some sensibility and thinking about, not trashing the planet that we live in, and also not in treating our fellow human beings with dignity.
I like the concept that the denominator for everybody shouldn't be the bottom dollar, that there should be more to just the gain of, I don't know, the more to gain of like how well your company known, is your company known for? Is it just known for profit, or is it known for social good? How do you? I hear this and what the companies can do. Is there a place in your radio show where you can give sort of maybe ideas as to how they can do it, how they can take that approach?
Well, one way we're approaching this show is we want to not just give information, but we want to tell stories, right? So in many cases, a lot of the interviews that we have will be with people and companies who are implementing these practices. So they can come in and tell, like, this is how we've done it, and this is how we've benefited, right? So it's not just about us, giving information in that professorial way.
Yeah.
No, it's not like that. But the focus will be on basically people just, telling their stories, telling their company stories, talking about why this makes sense, or, and how it's impacted, their own companies. And, and even, from the standpoint of looking at it from a kind of a municipal way, looking at it kind of even from a government point of view. If you have city sustainability people or people come in and talk about, like, hey, we implemented these policies and look what happened,
Well, Houston has, the city of Houston, the municipality, done a really great job with sustainability and with some of the stuff that they've enacted. We've seen more parks be added to the city. Houston is a concrete jungle, and what we've seen a lot of is that there's all of these outdoor spaces that have been added in recent years. Like in the last 10 years, they've done a really good job. When I was with the mayor's office, I got to work with the Brownfields program, which a little bit, which is, for those of you who have never heard it, Brownfields basically is these plots of land that have been so contaminated that they were thought to be unusable, and through a process of going in and doing remediation on them, are then put back into use for something.
Right.
There's federal grants and some other stuff that are involved, but some of this is really, really very interesting work. So I can't wait to hear more about all of this when your show gets up and running. Roz, please let us know the date, and we'll definitely tweet it out there or put it out there for our listeners to start listening in.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys, and and if you want to come on and talk about something that's going on that's, sustainability related, please let me know, because we have to reinforce these messages.
Well, absolutely. And so on that same vein of thoughts, I'm transitioning to a topic that I actually brought because it really caught my eye, was the fact that in the United States, for the very first time, bees have been placed on the endangered species list. So what happened was that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has placed, and I'm going to say it's seven types of bees in Hawaii in the endangered list because they're basically disappearing. A few years ago, and I'm oblivious to a lot of stuff. You know it, Juan. You know it, Anjelica. Listeners, you've heard me on more than one occasion. The big game, the fact that there's Emmy Awards, the Oscars, big news like that. It's like, oh, I turned the TV on and the presidential candidates are going at it in a debate, and I'm like, wait a minute, there was a debate? Yeah, absolutely, I can be, but someone did clue me in more than 10 years ago about the fact that bees are disappearing. Something like 40% of the world's population of bees have basically just vanished, and they're dying off. Which, if you've ever seen, there's this cute little cartoon movie, Jerry Seinfeld does the sound called, I want to say it's called The Bee Movie. And in The Bee Movie, the bees go on strike. And then there's this very interesting thing about what happens to, they talk about the flowers, and I don't remember them talking about food, but about, I think it's 75 or 80% of the world's food sources, vegetables and plants and things upon which either we as humans rely or the animals that we eat, for those of us who aren't vegetarians, rely upon, actually need pollination, and pollination is done by bees. Bees disappearing means that our food sources are going to be affected. If bees were wiped off the face of the earth, I'm not sure we actually have a plan B for food.
But there's been a big bee talk for some years now, and it's been quite going on, and I'm surprised that it's been placed on the endangered list.
Well, it's scary.
That's a scary thought.
They're bees. I mean, no offense, bees are everywhere.
They're a big part of the evolution and how much they are they're the process of that, because they do pollinate. So they cross-pollinate a lot of flowers, and from that we get some new flowers. We get stuff that is no longer, it looks like jungle and very historic and it becomes something that's edible to us as people, and so it's a big deal.
Even if you don't care about flowers, who cares about the flowers? That's not me. I'm being sarcastic. Don't flame me here. Food. What I am actually talking about is, in the United States, we waste so much food. I'm aware of that. There's even a movement in some larger cities, I don't think it's hit Houston yet, where there are these restaurants that are cropping up that literally the menu has these recipes in them where they use the portions of vegetables and fruits that normally get thrown out by restaurants. It's this whole thing. Grocery stores and homes, we waste a lot of food. And yet, still in the U.S., it's like 1 in every 8 children goes hungry every day. There's still famine in the world. But we're looking at, if this happens, if we start seeing the point where all bees are on the endangered species list and they actually start to affect the food sources to where we're not seeing stuff come out, then we're in trouble.
What's the cause? Did they say anything about the cause of why they're extinct now? Is it just climate change and all that?
That plays a big role.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, and climate change was the next thing I was going to say, as we see that this huge hurricane just hit Florida again. And I have a family member who is very, very much in the climate change does not exist.
That's what I was going to say. There's a lot of people who still don't believe that climate change is real.
And I am so supremely baffled by that. I don't understand it. I don't understand how someone can stand up and say climate change isn't happening as we look around in the world. I mean, seriously. Any ideas?
Well, I think one part of it is it's very overwhelming, right? And it's a complicated topic. I think that people have to find new ways of talking about it. And, the one thing I do is I just ask people questions, right? I don't tell them, that this is or that is happening. I just ask questions like, what do you suppose is going on with that? And then what ends up happening a lot of times is that people will stop, right? Because they don't want to, then I can see them start to process. But, in talking about the bee situation, so I read where Morgan Freeman, the actor, turned his whole 124-acre farm in Mississippi into a bee sanctuary just for this reason. And a lot of people are doing that just kind of individually, even in their own homes and on their own farms, small farms.
Yes.
They will make a sanctuary for bees just to try to combat this problem. I think it was North Carolina or South Carolina where they had a massive bee killing because what they did, I mean, in this,
on purpose?
One problem leads to another. I think it was in an effort to spray for Zika.
Oh my God!
And what
Are
they
you kidding?
what they did was they sprayed at the wrong time.
And
there was this millions, and when I say millions of bees died, millions.
Oh, wow.
Millions. So it's things like this you have to, and so people who know bees and who are kind of experts said, well, first of all, you sprayed at the wrong time because everybody knows you can't spray at this time because that's when bees are out, right? If you just even change the time that you sprayed, this would have been way, way less of a problem. So, there are things like that because it does impact food production. I mean, some of the statistics say that, like when you eat, if you have 3 items for, 4 items for dinner, like 1 in 3 things that you put in your mouth is there because of bees and their work. So it is a serious issue. But you know what? When you were talking about like even food waste.
Yes.
See, this is sort of some of the things that we get involved with. See, people can create businesses just to address things like that. So you can even create businesses to do this kind of social good.
What
I've noticed sometimes talking about wasteful food, is a lot of the implications that your local government doesn't allow certain things to happen. Yep. So stores that, some of their stuff is going bad, they actually have in policy, or their company policy requires them to throw it away. We were at Starbucks the other day, and I don't mean to call out Starbucks, but they started serving food, and some of the food that is gonna go bad, they have to throw it away. They can't donate it
on a daily basis.
Yeah,
and that's on a daily basis.
And that's on a daily basis.
When I used to work, and I'm not going to tell you how many years ago, at McDonald's, and we actually, who remembers when McDonald's kept fresh food sitting there waiting for people to go up and order? And you put these.
Remember that.
You would put these little like timers, those little cards that marked when the food was no longer fresh, and you just threw the entire batch away and you made more. And I think back to that and I'm like, oh my God, what were we thinking? Seriously. That in order for them to get people through the lines and through the drive-thrus regularly, I mean, they tried not to keep more food on hand than they needed, but on several times a day, it wasn't unusual for us to go through and just throw away these handfuls of hamburgers because they were more than an hour old or something.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times, a lot of this cause and effects are happening due to the human convenience, which is really bad. I know. I took actual, like, I was having a conversation the other day, and it dawned on me that is an actual cause and effect of a lot of things we do, is a convenience for ourselves. I was telling somebody that I will not trade convenience for inaccuracy anymore. Like, it has to be done right. Like, if you're going to do it, I prefer you do it right. The first time, knowing that you have a year to research on it based on that. And I'll actually pay for it. I'll pay for the service. I'll pay for whatever it is that I have to. If I have to pay $5 more as opposed to paying $15, if I have to pay $20 for it, then I'll do it. And I think that's my social responsibility now at this point.
Anjelica, welcome to middle class.
But I think that,
Sorry, that's very much.
I think that's a thing of being able to do that, because there are people who can't do that, who can't afford to go to pay extra for a vegetarian burger than they are just to go for 99-cent menu. And I think that's where there's a lack and there's a disconnect, because those people still should have the choice, but they don't have the options to do that.
Yes, I do.
So we've talked on the show previously about the fact that being poor, and I am not talking about being out of money, I'm talking about actually being poor, in the long run costs you more money than actually having money on hand. It costs you more money because you can't pay for things up front. You can't invest in things like sustainability, like ongoing maintenance and repairs. You can't go see the doctor for your annual physical. There's things that because we're not in that income bracket anymore, now are able to afford that actually makes our lives cheaper in the long run than if you didn't have any money.
And in a city like Houston that's in transition, because it really is a city that's still in transition, that has a long way to go before it's going to become, the metropolis that it will be. Look at Dallas and where it was like 5-10 years ago. Houston is in that transition. So I think part of the planning for Houston should not only be to attract, all these new residents to the city, to attract this new tech community, to attract innovation, but also to create opportunities for the people that are already here, the people who are underserved, and to figure out how to provide them the right resources so that they have the option of, being sustainable if they want to, and be more, like you said, be more corporate socially responsible. So,
and a lot of the times, a lot of things we do is we take away basic things like transportation, public transportation, where it's constantly changing and things are constantly happening and taking place, where it does become an issue. Basic things like getting on the same bus wasn't available last year as it is now, and it's changed. As a person who takes the bus to school, it was difficult. And so basic things like that, or like $1, even the rise of like a quarter to get on public transportation makes a big difference, right? That means Houston
Houston is not unique amongst big cities. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is something that a lot of the cities are seeing a challenge with. The thing that Houston has that's unique is the size of the city. So for us, transportation is a huge deal, because we can't just walk the 18 blocks to make it to somewhere, or the 5 miles wherever, because we're talking Houston is hundreds upon hundreds of miles. Going back to this and food deserts is one of those
here
things.
In the East End where we're recording is a food desert, where we don't have grocery stores the way we should have grocery stores, and we have to travel out. We have to get in our car and drive, what is it, Juan, 15 miles to go to a grocery store. That is to a grocery store that can like an actual
not a convenience
not a convenience store. Yes. So a food desert in terms of like, I think there's a actual food store that's not small, that's big in size enough to feed a neighborhood. I think here it's like we live in such close quarters that there's more fast food restaurants than there is, it's just, it's quite sad. It's quite sad. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It's one of those things. So going back to the original topic about bees. And now that we've got maybe a minute left on the show, going back to the original topic about bees. One of the things that I'd like to say is that every little bit helps that we do. So if you actually do find that you've got a beehive on your property, don't kill them. there are places that you can call that they will come and they will remove the bees, and they will actually put them someplace else where they're safe and they're not in the way and they're not dead, and they will be happily pollinating fruits and vegetables and flowers for us.
Yeah, so if you actually, we actually have a friend who does pest control, and that's an actual thing. What he says is they actually take the queen and the bees follow the truck to the places.
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is actually a possibility. So yes, you are right, Sandra. If you see the bee. I was a good person yesterday. There was a bee and I didn't swat it. I ran. So no, just kidding. But so it does happen. They do take the actual queen and the bees follow the truck. And it is possible, even if you think if it's a small beehive of maybe a 50 or even smaller, it's still possible. Just try not to go to Home Depot quickly and buy that bee spray.
Okay. And that's today's show. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Little Radio Show. We invite you to check out our iTunes and our Stitcher channels and leave us a rating or a review. You can find the link to both channels at thelittleradioshow.com.